Hi, and welcome to this week's Wu Wei Wisdom Life Lessons teaching. It's great to be back with you all. This week we are exploring the topic of being naive when it comes to your relationships, setting boundaries, and holding on to your hopes and dreams. We're going to be deep diving into how the inner child is involved and how you can find a balance between healthy openness and optimism and wishful thinking. Okay, David, so this topic, being naive and wishful thinking, I guess it's about the difference between kind of beautiful, healthy innocence and naivety.
It's a really interesting subject to talk about because it definitely, it really encapsulates why working with the inner child can be so interesting and challenging at the same time. So the inner child, that part of our mind, we wanted to explore, to be in awe, to look at new things with an innocence, but it can swing the other way. And this is the thing about the inner child, Alex. It can move from being this innocent, open, encapsulating. It's hard to use the right words. And then it can swing to the other side, which is wanting things the way it wants to. Everything has to be his way. Wishful thinking, wanting reality to flow in the way that it wants it. I've got a little saying about the inner child. I always think the inner child wants what it wants when it wants it. So that's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
That's going against reality. Being open and being in awe means you're open to explore reality. And those are the two sides of this emotional pendulum.
Yeah, because the openness that comes with looking at the world through almost like childlike, innocent eyes means we can connect deeply to new things, new people, and that we may otherwise be closed off from or dismissive about.
And isn't that a wonderful thing?
Yeah.
It's like exciting and awesome, and you're seeing things fresh.
It is, it's very exciting. It's very joyful. It means you're kind of leaning more towards hope and optimism rather than cynicism, I guess. But the challenge, I guess, is not allowing those inner childlike qualities, because they're very childlike qualities, those inner childlike qualities of our mind to express and be fulfilled and feel all the green light feelings that come with that, whilst balancing it with almost like a sensibleness or a wiseness, so that we can still have a sense of groundedness and safety, and that we're not just getting carried off and away with the fairies.
Well, I think what you're describing there is what perhaps the life lesson is on this, the Wu Wei. What is the Wu Wei? And the word you use is a perfect word, to be grounded. To be grounded, to allow yourself to be in awe, to see a sunset and to be in awe of it, but not to want the sun to set when it's just right for you, at the time that you're right and and everything's ready. I think the way that you see this a lot in my clients is this idea of perfection. They want everything to be perfect. They want themselves to be perfect, and they want what they're doing to be perfect, and they want everybody to like them to be like perfectly. And that's where it swings too much into almost like wishful thinking and not grounded in reality.
Yeah, the difference between innocence and naivety, as you say, manifests through perfectionism in terms of wanting a perfect world, for them to be perfect, everyone else to behave perfectly, and outcomes to always be perfect. And
the way they want it, you see, that's the key.
Yeah.
When it swings where it's got to be the way that they think it should be.
Yeah, and then when things aren't that way, so in relationships with outcomes in terms of goals or intentions that we're working towards, then we have this swinging of emotions because we have the highs when things are going good and we believe things are turning out perfectly, or we're wishing and hoping and holding on to dreams of perfection. And then reality bites because life is not perfect. People don't behave how we want them to behave.
And then they experience the pendulum swinging and then the intense red lights. And then they start to look around to blame themselves. I'm not good enough. It never works out for me. I can't cope. It's all over the place. Or blaming other people. If it wasn't for them, I can't deal with that. And so this is when they lose the naivety and they get into being in control. They want it the way that they want it, and that's where it takes over.
And David, have you observed in your clients like patterns of thinking with this, the naive thinking that maybe that are carried through from childhood? Yeah. So in terms of relationship dynamics or setting boundaries or not setting boundaries, is this like repeating behavior despite the reality crashes?
Well, this is why it's important to do these life lessons, because as I say in these life lessons, you can't change what you don't understand and accept. So we kind of try and give you a broad brush for you to say, oh yeah, I see that in me, because you can see these patterns, and these are the patterns that are your beliefs, your principles, your morals, and they're buried deep down. You may want to call it your subconscious mind or your ego. I prefer to call it the inner child part of your mind. And this part of your mind was formed in childhood, normally around the age of 6 or 9 years old, where you were making really big judgments on reality, on the way the world should be. So perhaps you were in a dysfunctional family and you looked at your friends and they were having a much more balanced and happy life. And then you started to bring in your childlike beliefs about the way things should be, about how people should act towards you. And so this wishful thinking, this control, wanting things the way that you want them, swings you too far, and almost you lose that innocence, that wonderful part of you that is childlike. And there's nothing wrong with being that childlike, that you see something for the first time and you are in awe. You're taking away. I can remember when we were traveling once, we saw a sunset in India. Yeah. You remember that? And it was like the first time you'd seen it. It was just so amazing. Yeah. And words don't describe it. You were just in awe, like you were seeing it for the first time. And you don't want to lose that, but you don't want to be stuck in a pendulum swinging from one side to the other.
I think, David, the problem comes more with like relationships or with stuff to do with finances or career, adult stuff, that it's wonderful to be encouraging the inner child to fully absorb, be open, express, the wonders of nature and the creative time and being playful and having time out and doing things which are childlike but beautiful. But when it comes to adulting stuff like relationships, career stuff, health stuff, finance stuff, we can't let that innocent inner child take the lead, and it's when we don't put the brakes on and we don't let the adult self, the wiser self, the more mature self, the spiritual self, the Shen, take the lead. That's when we hit problems, because it's like we're interacting with the adult world, serious adult stuff which has to be navigated carefully and intricately. And we are putting into play our inner child, who is not the best part of our psyche to deal with the adult stuff.
Absolutely. And that goes back to what you said, and where you've just explained that was perfectly. Goes back to what you said at the beginning. Where are you grounded? You see, so the inner child can be in awe, can have these fanciful ideas, but as Alex just explained, you can't allow that, or you can't be grounded in that. And Alex says in your adult stuff, I would go one step further in your spirituality, in that inner wisdom, that inner knowing, and that should be where the grounding is. So where do you find the balance between this naivety and this against reality and wishful thinking that will never happen? The Wu way is to find the balance in connecting with your spirituality. And that spirituality will always know how to navigate that gentle flow in your life. And really, that's what Wu Wei means, being in your flow. In our model, we have a kind of what we call a Shen test. How do we know? And always think, what would I say? What would I say to my physical child when they came to me and says, you know what, Dad? Things should work out the way that I want them to. And if they don't, I'm going to really kick off. I'm going to have a temper tantrum. What would we say to that child? See, we always know the right questions and we always know the right answers. And that's your Shen talking. That's your inner knowing. You may know it as different words: gut feeling, intuition, inner knowing, inner wisdom. But that's that Shen.
And David, I'm wondering, so what you're saying here is when it comes to more serious adulting stuff, we should acknowledge the inner child's
Absolutely.
Desires and say, well, I acknowledge this, but we just have to be a little bit more careful here. The adult part of us needs to step in and take the lead on this.
This is very important, Alex, because what a lot of my clients do, they either try and shut down the inner child and lock them away and don't let them express themselves and have that sense of awe.
Yeah.
Or they ignore them completely and they don't listen. They shut them away, they avoid them. And this part of you that we call the inner child is not your enemy. It's not somebody like the devil sitting on your shoulder. It's a wonderful part of you that we have to develop and bring into a oneness. So instead of having two parts of you, the inner child and the adult self, in a tug of war, fighting each other, we want to bring them together with compassion, with love, with kindness. And that's the Wu way of this lesson. That's the learning. Acknowledge, understand the naivety and the wishful thinkingness. And we're using, I want to be perfect. I want everything to work out the way I want it to. See those two extremes and then find that Shen for yourself.
Yeah. Because I'm wondering whether, in relationships, in work, in, creativity in work, in finance matters, in health matters, that there is a part for the inner child to play.
Absolutely.
Because we don't want to squeeze out fun, lightness, delightfulness, inquisitiveness, playfulness, a bit of craziness. We don't want to squeeze that out. So we need to create space within all of those adult aspects of our lives for the inner child to express. But that needs to be balanced with, I guess, what I would call sensible thinking or logic, where we then switch to the adult self, the Shen, the wise self, to check things, to verify things, to look for, to, as you say, do the Shen test. And then it's about the interplay between those two. So we need to give the inner child permission to have hopes, dreams, be playful, silly. But we then need to also put in time to be sensible, logical, to verify stuff.
And I guess that's why we do these videos and this life lesson. that for you to sit down and say, what part of this teaching applies to you? If it does, do you see these two parts of you? And how are you dealing with it? And this is really the meditation. And we kind of go right back to the beginning to what Alex said. Where are you grounding yourself? Where are your foundations? I believe they should be based on truth, honesty, and integrity. I say it on every video. Does that mean you can't have fun? No, of course it means you can have fun. Does that mean you can't go into the park and kick some leaves? No, of course it doesn't. You can enjoy yourself, but you're not grounded in that flinging from one side to the other, having a temper tantrum when things don't go right, always got your head in the clouds. There has to be a balance. And this is the Wu Wei. This is this life lesson. And this is what I would call spirituality. You are awesome. Never doubt yourself. You have innate value and worth. Never doubt that. That is your birthright. And ground yourself in that. And then please express your creativity, your joy, your fun. Go and do some mad things and enjoy it. But don't let your life be consumed by it.
Yeah, wonderful. And for me, David, I think the key words here are appropriateness and discernment, and allowing the adult part of our mind to be discerning as to what is appropriate, whether it's appropriate for the inner child to play freely and have fun and to express, or whether it's time for the wiser, intuitive, spiritual part of us to take the lead on what's going on in our lives.
Well, in Taoism, that translation and the way called discernment is very important, because discernment means that you are in control, you are accountable, you are making choices. You embrace all these different characteristics of you, which make you unique. There is no one in the universe like you. And all of these different aspects of your character are amazing. And now, with that discernment, you can use them appropriately when the time is right for you. But what this does, it means that you're in control. You're in control. And this is the most important teaching of this model and this Wu Wei wisdom that you're sharing with us. Finding that flow. If you think about the pendulum, we don't look for the extremes, we look for that center where the pendulum gently sways, and that's being in your flow.
Wonderful. Thank you, David. Well, I really, really hope you have enjoyed this teaching. Please do let us know if it resonates with you, if you've struggled with these issues, if you've dealt with them and what has worked for you. We'd absolutely love to hear from you. David works every week with clients all over the world on exactly these sort of inner child topics. If you'd like to learn more about David's one-to-one consultations, please check out the link in the show notes. David also now writes a weekly free blog on Substack, and I will put a link to that in the notes as well, so you can check out and get more weekly inspiration. And finally, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We produce new long-form teachings every Saturday and 2 midweek short snippets of wisdom for you to enjoy. So do subscribe. We look forward to sharing with you again very soon. Bye-bye.